David Cohen from Variety here. HBO's Game of Thrones is well into season 5, and while the show continues to kill off characters at an alarming rate, so far not a single king has been killed at his wedding this season, so maybe the writers are getting soft. But in lieu of regicide, we have yet more beautiful and fascinating locales to explore, so we invited production designer Deborah Riley in to tell us about the ideas beneath the look of Game of Thrones. Now, this is a fascinating program because, for one thing, it's sort of Earth, but it's not Earth. It's got dragons, it's got magic, but it's also got all the politics of House of Cards or something like that. Yeah. So tell us about the challenges of creating something that is just off from real life.
I think that's actually what really fascinates me about Game of Thrones. And I believe that it's because Game of Thrones feels so real that it actually allows you to believe in dragons. The way I was trained was that you're supposed to be able to smell a set. It should be that real. I think that's one of the things that is really important to the show and to the feel and to these characters, is that it is so gritty and lived in.
I gave my word I would give my life for yours if need be. You should leave.
Deb, you were the second production designer on Game of Thrones.
First of all, I would be foolish to not to admit that I was absolutely terrified when I came in, because obviously Game of Thrones has already had such an enormous following. And a production designer is the cheerleader of the art department, and the visual guide, so you have to make sure that that's maintained, but also that we could expand the worlds, as Game of Thrones needed. And the great thing was, for us, is that there were whole new worlds that were to be established, like Braavos and Marine, for instance. And so that gave, the season 4, season 5 team, the ability to establish new places and, new colours and new textures.
They can live in my new world, or they can die in their old one.
There was only one rule that I was told when I was interviewing for the job, and that's even in a mid-shot, an audience should always be able to understand in an instant what character they're dealing with and in what world. It's something that we're very careful about, and we've established a big Bible of looks for all the different places. Season 5 is actually incredibly exciting and beautiful. We have Dawn that's being established, and we shoot most of Dawn on location in Spain. It's so green and so lush and so exotic. There's oranges and blues that we haven't seen in the show before, and it gives the whole place a feeling of summer and of richness and wealth. We also establish the new city of Braavos, which we saw first of all in season 4 when we established the Bank of Braavos.
Welcome to the Iron Bank.
Now we get to go into the city much more deeply. And so for that, it was expanding what we did with season 4, and we had lots of, deep, rich green tones as well as sort of metallic bronzes. So the biggest set and the most exciting set, I think, to establish in season 5 is the House of Black and White. This is a place which is deeply mysterious. It's like the haunted house, of your suburb. Everybody knows where it is, but nobody wants to go there. And so this building has no windows, nothing at all. There's nothing on the outside that tells you what's contained inside. And so for us also, from a design point of view, that's very exciting. And when you move through, you enter an atrium until you eventually get to what's called the Hall of Faces. And it's full of the skins of various faces, thousands and thousands of faces. Is it a library of faces? Or is it like an art gallery? Or how is it done? The idea that eventually we landed on was looking at a lot of Islamic architecture and Indian architecture, and just the idea that the faces could be part of the architecture. I think on Game of Thrones, the most underappreciated but most valued people are the plasterers.
The plasterers?
Plasterers. Those guys create all the textures of the show. So whether you've got sort of the rough stone of Castle Black, whether you've got the plastered finishes of King's Landing, they're responsible for creating all of that. And without them and their sculpting and their craft, the show would look nothing like it does. Just like actors build characters, you want production design to be so completely fitting for the character.
The tunnel's gate won't stop them.
The bars on those gates are 4 inches thick, cold rolled steel.
And they won't stop them.
You shouldn't be looking what's on the wall in the background. But at the same time, on Game of Thrones, there is a lot of sort of leeway and richness in creating these extraordinary environments. That in our case, it's something that I think adds to the spirit and the character of the show.
A girl is not ready to become no one. But she's ready to become someone else.